I never thought keeping a few chickens and goats on my property would cause a war. To me, they weren't just animals, they were part of my way of life. But the HOA decided otherwise. One morning, I opened my mailbox to find a letter that said in bold red letters, "Remove all farm animals or face daily fines." My hands shook as I read it, not from fear, but from pure disbelief. If you enjoy powerful, true-to-life HOA revenge stories where justice is finally served, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We've got more stories like this coming, and you won't want to miss them. I live in a semi-rural neighborhood where houses sit on 1-acre plots. It wasn't the city, it wasn't deep country, something in between. When my wife and I moved here, we wanted the peace of space, fresh air, and the comfort of raising some of our own food. We built a little chicken coop, fenced off a small pen for 3 goats, and even planted a vegetable patch. Our neighbors? Most loved it. Kids came by to feed the chickens, and one older couple down the road told me, "It feels like the old days again, seeing animals around." But then there was Karen. Every HOA seems to have one. She lived 2 houses down, and from the moment she saw our goats, her face twisted like she'd bitten into a lemon. One evening, as I was filling water for the animals, she marched up to the fence. "You can't keep barnyard animals here," she snapped. "They're not barnyard animals, they're pets," I replied calmly. "They stink, they make noise, and this is a residential neighborhood. The HOA will hear about this." She stormed off, heels clacking on the pavement. I just shook my head. I'd read the HOA rules when we moved in. Nowhere did it say animals were prohibited, only that they had to be non-disruptive. But a week later, the notices started arriving. First notice, remove animals within 14 days. Second notice, failure to comply will result in $200 daily fines. Third notice, legal action will be pursued. Each one felt more aggressive than the last. My wife grew nervous, but I told her, "Don't worry. They don't have a leg to stand on." Still, I decided to go to the next HOA meeting to address it directly. When I walked into the small clubhouse, all eyes turned. Karen sat at the front, smirking like a cat about to pounce. "Mr. Johnson," the president began, "we've received multiple complaints about your animals. They must go." "With all due respect," I said, keeping my voice steady, "the bylaws don't forbid goats or chickens. They forbid nuisances. My neighbors enjoy them. I keep everything clean. So where's the problem?" Karen leaned forward. "The problem is property values. No one wants to live next to a farm. This is not a petting zoo." A murmur spread through the room. One neighbor spoke up, "I don't mind the animals. My kids love visiting." Another added, "He keeps his place cleaner than most of us." The board didn't care. They voted then and there to pass a new amendment, effective immediately, banning all farm animals, past or present. I was ordered to remove mine within 10 days. When I got home, my wife sat on the porch steps, looking worried. "What did they say?" she asked. "They passed a new rule just to get rid of us," I admitted. She sighed, "So what now?" I clenched my jaw. Now we fight." But I didn't mean just filing complaints or writing letters. You see, my brother is the county sheriff. And while I've never used his badge as a crutch, I knew the law better than they thought. That amendment they passed? It wasn't valid without county approval. And their threats of fines? Illegal under state code. The HOA thought they could bully me into submission, but they had just declared war on the wrong family. I bided my time, letting the notices stack up, all the while preparing my counterattack. The final straw came one Saturday morning when I woke up to banging on my fence. Karen stood there with 2 board members and a clipboard. "We're here to document your violations," one of them said smugly. "You're trespassing," I replied coldly. Karen laughed. "We'll fine you every day until you're bankrupt. Say goodbye to your little farm, cowboy." I didn't reply. I just looked at her, then at the clipboard, and then back at my goats peacefully chewing hay. Inside, I was already smiling. Because what they didn't know was that the law, and my brother, were about to turn the tables. The morning after Karen and her clipboard brigade showed up, I made a call I had been holding back on. My brother, Tom, the county sheriff, answered on the first ring. "What's going on, little brother?" he asked. "I need your help," I said plainly. "The HOA is breaking the law, harassing me, and trespassing on my property." He paused. "I've heard stories about your neighborhood's board, but I figured they were just petty. You're telling me they've crossed into illegal territory?" "More than that," I replied. "They created a new rule just to ban my animals without approval. And yesterday, they stepped onto my property uninvited." His voice hardened. "That's enough for me. Don't do anything rash. I'll be there by tomorrow." When Tom pulled into my driveway the next morning in his sheriff's truck, you could almost feel the tension ripple across the neighborhood. People peeked through curtains. Karen, standing in her yard, stiffened like she'd swallowed a stick. Tom walked the property with me, inspecting the notices, photographing the clipboard Karen had waved at me, and shaking his head the whole time. "This isn't just harassment," he muttered. "This is fraud and intimidation. They don't have the authority to fine you a dime without county approval." Later that afternoon, he accompanied me to the HOA office. The board sat around their polished oak table, smug as ever, until Tom laid his badge on the table. "Let's get one thing straight," he said firmly. "You cannot pass retroactive rules and apply them to existing homeowners. You cannot issue fines that are not recognized by the county. And you cannot trespass on private property under the guise of enforcement." The president of the HOA cleared his throat nervously. "Sheriff, with all due respect, we're just maintaining the integrity of our community," Tom cut him off. "Integrity? You're manufacturing rules to target a homeowner, and if these notices don't stop immediately, I'll consider this harassment and bring charges." Karen crossed her arms, defiant. "You can't scare us. We are the HOA." Tom turned to her slowly. "And I am the law. Do you want to test which one holds more weight?" The room went silent. I thought that might end it, but Karen wasn't one to back down easily. A few days later, I received yet another letter, this time threatening to put a lien on my property. That was the moment Tom decided to escalate. He called a community-wide meeting, inviting every homeowner. When people showed up, they didn't expect to see the sheriff at the podium. "Folks," Tom began, holding up the stack of bogus fines, "your board has been operating outside the law. They've issued fines they cannot enforce, and they've trespassed onto private property." Gasps spread through the crowd. Neighbors whispered to each other. One elderly man raised his hand. "Sheriff, are you saying we don't have to pay any of these fines?" "That's correct," Tom said. "Every single one of these is invalid. If you've already paid, I suggest seeking reimbursement immediately." Karen jumped up from the front row. "This is outrageous. You're undermining the authority of the HOA." Tom fixed her with a steady stare. "No, ma'am. I'm protecting this community from a board that's been abusing its authority. And unless this behavior stops today, I'll open an investigation into misuse of funds and harassment." The room erupted. Neighbors who had been silently suffering now found their voices. People shouted about ridiculous fines for garden gnomes, porch paint colors, and lawn lengths. The board's faces were drained of color. That was the breaking point. Within a week, 3 board members resigned, including the president. Karen tried to cling to her position, but with the majority turning against her, and the sheriff breathing down her neck, she had no choice but to step down. I still remember the day after Karen's resignation. I was out feeding the goats when one of my neighbors, a father of 2, stopped by. "Hey," he said with a smile, "thanks for standing up to them. You don't know how much that means to all of us." I nodded. I wasn't about to let them bully us. We all deserve to live in peace. Word spread quickly that the HOA was being restructured under new leadership, people who actually cared about fairness in community. And as for Karen, she put her house up for sale within the month. Nobody waved goodbye when she left. Now, when I sit on my porch in the evening, watching the chickens scratch in the dirt and the goats play in the pen, I feel a quiet sense of victory. Justice was served, not with shouting matches or fists, but with patience, the law, and a little help from family. The lesson? Bullies only have power if you let them. Stand your ground, know your rights, and surround yourself with people who value fairness. Dignity will always outlast arrogance. And every time I hear my goats bleat in the distance, I can't help but